everybody. This is my summary of 2014 for the blog. I originally had written out a post, but it seemed kind of pointless because you've all seen what I've made. So if you are interested in going back and seeing anything that you might have missed, right above me there's a button that says Sewing Archive. You can click that and it's little thumbnails of everything I've made each year. And you can click on it, it'll take you to the post. So, unlike last year where I did show everything I'd made, I decided this year to do the top 5 lists that everyone else was doing, and I can't remember the blog that started it. Sorry, I'll link to it below, as well as including my lists. So, my top 5 hits this year were definitely the silk tap pants that I made that were sort of 1930s style. It was a Sew Vera Venus tutorial that I used. I wear them all the time. They're wonderful underdresses, especially in summer because you don't have, anything tight against your body, making you more hot. I made a bag for when I travel, and I specifically made it for my trip to China, and it gets used every day. Every day. So that was good, except that I did make it out of navy fabric, which obviously I love navy fabric because I'm wearing it and most of my coats are navy. So I kind of wish I had thought about making it out of a different color fabric, but it was a stash bust, so it is what it is, and it gets used all the time. It's perfect. I made James a shirt from Colette's Negroni pattern, which was awesome because he needs slim cut clothing, and for whatever reason, their fit model is perfect on him. I had to do no alterations. It was great. I wish I could find a shirt pattern like that, but we know that's not happening anytime soon. So that was number 3. My 4th top hit was my own plaid shirt that I made from a 1940s pattern. It was a Simplicity, and it has pearl snaps down the front. And I wore it a decent amount, but I don't have a skirt yet that really matches it. The skirt I wore was kind of on the short side, and in the city, it was really breezy when I wore it, and there were a lot of Marilyn Monroe moments. So I'd like to make a little bit heavier or a little bit longer skirt to match it. But I think it will also go with some 1940s, sort of like a skirt thing that I have planned. So we'll see. And then last fall, my 50s swimsuit, which I started in college, and I finally finished. So that was really awesome. It was also plaid, actually. There was a lot of plaid this year. And I used that plaid fabric as a lining for my China bag. So there's a lot of reuse, which is good. But I was really pleased with that. Even if it's not something I ever really wear again, it really marked a big step for me in, sort of taking on this challenge that I had tried a long time ago and not succeeded at. And, when I pulled it back out again, it was like, oh, I really didn't have that much left to do on it. Why did I stop? So for me, that was a really big, important thing. My top 5 misses, the pleather bustier, which I love but never wore. And you can't see it, but I kind of cheated. It was actually really too big. In the photos, I used like clips or something, like binder clips to make it fit properly when I took photos. So I'd like to go back and look at that. Also, the hook and eye closures in the front really make a gap that's kind of unpleasant and not flattering. And so I think I'd like to take out the hook and eye closures down the center front, sew the front together, and then in the back, take out the excess material and just put in a zipper. And I think I'd actually wear it that way because I like it. It's just not quite there. So that was too bad. Then I made I made this polka dotted tunic t-shirt thing for Fall Essentials Sew Along, which I was so bummed that it just didn't fit right, and I should have known because it was a big 4 pattern, but the fabric was from Alessa in Germany, and I was really hoping that it would work out. And the shirt is beautiful, and I gave it to my sister, and it fits her great. So at least it didn't go to waste, and she loves it. So thanks, Alessa, for the fabric. I still have the purple fabric, which I haven't used yet, that she gave me, so maybe that'll get used this year. We'll see. But I'd really like to explore more knitwear this year, because I have a lot of knits that they're just languishing in the closet. Then my 1940s cycling blouse was cute, but I used leftover fabric that isn't really fabric I liked. It was from a shirt I made for my dad, and the fit is definitely not perfect. Like, I could wear it. It's not that bad, but I expected to maybe wear it, and I didn't at all. So that was kind of like, okay, well, that's that. But I think definitely I figured out my sizing, and I figured out that 1940s patterns for me are like the golden goose, or, you know, the holy grail. Like, I can just make them right out of the package for the most part, and they will be great. But that one was a B36, and I need a B34. So I've learned my lesson. Won't do that again. And I guess I didn't come up with 5 misses. So my number 4 is the Plantain t-shirt, and this is kind of a miss, but kind of a hit. I wear it all the time, but there's definitely some problems in the bust area. I think it's not big enough, but it fits everywhere else. So I generally just wear it like as a scrubby t-shirt around the house, or I wear it, you know, as a pajama top. So it's good, but it was kind of like I was hoping to get more use every day because I really liked the silhouette. My top 5 highlights of the year are: number 1, I got to go work in Chicago, and I got to stay with Megan of megthegrand.blogspot.com, I think, and that was super fun because we'd only met once before at the So Weekly meetup in New York City, and so it was kind of a big risk being like, hey, I'm coming to Chicago to work, and I have nowhere to stay. Can I stay with you for basically almost 2 months? And, you know, it was like, at the end, it was like, oh god, we'll either love each other or we'll be at each other's throats and ready to, like, kick me out the door. And luckily, we had an awesome time, and I can't wait to hopefully go back and visit, because I also made a lot of friends when I was working there, and I met Liz of Zilredlow, and I met Michelle of Très Bien Ensemble, and they were both really awesome, and Michelle has really cool dogs. So that was a really good time. And my second highlight of the year was I then went to Europe, like a month and a half later, because it was the year of travel for me. And so my family vacationed in the Alps. We went to Switzerland and Austria and Germany, and it was very beautiful. My grandparents were stationed there after the war, and so my grandmother, when she came back, and we lived with my grandmother when I was growing up, basically, and her decor style to me now makes so much sense, because she would always have like the little red geraniums and, you know, very folksy style, very rural, alpine Tyrolean sort of look. So it was wonderful to see where she got the inspiration for that. Number 3, I also went to China. So I went halfway around the world this year, and then I went halfway around the other way. I went to China for work for 10 days on a beautiful production called White Snake. It's a play by Mary Zimmerman, who's very well known in the theatrical world. and I got to work with a lot of talented people, and my boss, who was my boss in Chicago as well, was amazing, and it was a really interesting place that we were in because it was sort of a scenic park crossed with a historic village that had been rebuilt. So it was like stepping into Mulan rather than what you would think of if you thought of modern day China. So that was a lot of fun, even if the traveling was just awful because I don't travel well. My fourth highlight of the year was I got this dog. We adopted her. She's so great. We obviously have another dog that you've seen, Paisley, who's a lab golden retriever mix, who's wonderful, but I felt like we needed to balance things out, and Paisley would get lonely during the day when we both went to work, and so I decided to get her a playmate. And we actually put in this is Honeybee, which is her shelter name. We have not changed it yet, and I'm not sure if we ever will, because it kind of works for her. If you meet her, you would understand. I don't know if you can hear it, but she's snoring right now. And we actually put in the adoption application while I was in China, because I had met her just before leaving, and she was so great, and it was like, this is the dog I want. Like, James, go put in the application, go do it. So she's some sort of pit bull. She looks like a Staffordshire Bull Terrier. She's a little smaller. We had looked at a lot of kind of dogs, but Lucille and Rochelle of Lucky Lucille really inspired me to look at pit bulls. And I have never met a sweeter dog than this. She is so cute, and she just sleeps all day, which is great. She's very cute, little freckles on her face, but unfortunately she has a lot of medical issues that we're dealing with right now, so she doesn't get to play outside as much as we would like. We can't really take her on walks yet. And it's expensive, so that means I really have to curtail my spending on sewing this year, but it's worth it because seeing her get better is wonderful. And she's these cute little ears that we love. Anyways, I'll stop bothering her. So that was great, and Paisley hasn't completely warmed up to her yet, but she's at least stopped punishing us when we go to work by, taking things off the pantry shelves and burning them in the yard or eating them. So that's good. And my last highlight, number 5, is that I actually sewed more things in 2014 than I, first of all, ever expected, but I think more than I've sewn in any other year, from what I can tell. I sewed 28 different things. And I think the reason I was so successful at that, even though I was traveling a lot and I was really busy with work, and I didn't even take advantage of, Megan's sewing machine when I was in Chicago. So it was like 2 months almost where I wasn't sewing. I think what happened was I didn't do as much garment sewing. I made some bags, which are pretty quick and dirty. I did some home deck sewing, which was a lot of fun. And I just sort of broadened my sewing horizons and made things. I was really smart, I think, about what I made. I sewed some things for work as well, obviously, that I had to make. I didn't have a choice. But it was really interesting sewing non-garments, and I liked that. So I don't know if I'll sew even more next year, but 28 things in a year for me is, like, I couldn't even believe it when I counted it out. So the second to last category is my top 5 reflections. And I think I'm doing this right, but whatever. So I can work with leather is number 1. I took a leather class while I was in Chicago. That was really cool. And I'd love to do more of that this year, but buying leather's really expensive. And you have to buy a pretty big quantity of it unless you can find something really interesting in the scrap bin at Mood, which is unlikely. But, you know, I bought a book on how to make some really cool bags and purses, and maybe at some point I will get to use that. I'd also like to do things like, you know, just make like a little sheath for my scissors and my snips, stuff like that. I'd love to make a new leather thimble because mine is falling apart. So yeah, leatherworking. Reflection number 2, I can sew a bra. I took a really great class at Workroom Social that was sort of a guinea pig class, and it was about bra sewing. And I didn't complete my bra, but I totally have confidence now that I could do it, and, you know, the fitting was amazing, and, you know, if I had to, I could just order supplies and make one. I don't know if I'll get to making more this year, but it's in the plans at some point. Number 3, home deck sewing can be a lot more fulfilling than garment sewing, because unless you're making a slipcover or curtains, you know, like I made pot holders and an oven mitt. It doesn't have to fit. You know, there's so many patterns for these kinds of things. Like I have a pattern for casserole dish covers that's really kind of nifty. And as long as you sew it the way it says, it'll come out pretty awesome. And it's usually a lot faster than garment sewing. Number 4 is I figured out, I think, hopefully, rib neck bands from sewing pajamas for this one and Paisley, because one came out too big and one came out kind of tight. So I think I have a good handle on what not to do, so I should be able to do it correctly next time. And the last one is bead application. Yay! I made a beaded suspender belt for Antony Cleopatra that was a nightmare. And I also assisted in beading some armored, well, it's a corset that's supposed to look like it's armored. So we used, you know, square beads for that. And it looked really cool, but it took a long, long time. And I was working under a woman who does wedding dresses. Pardon me. We're just beading all the time, and I just cannot imagine doing that for a living, because there were beads everywhere in the house for months. Like, I think sometimes we still find them, like, you know, a little one squirreled away in the carpet. So those are my 5 reflections. I don't know. And last, my top 5 goals. Obviously, I have limited spending capacity this year because of her medical bills, and I also don't have work lined up. I know I don't have anything lined up for the next couple of months. And last year, I actually made more than I'd ever made because of things like the China trip. But this year, I don't have anything like that. You know, that show is over. I won't be working on it anymore. So I don't have any fancy places I'm going to be traveling to and making big dollars. So, in a way, this is good because my stash has really gotten out of hand. And I have a lot of works in progresses that I need to deal with. So my first goal is to deal with the whips, you know, pull them out. I think it's under 10, but I'm not sure. And that's not a priority because the reason they're a whip is it's either not something I'm going to wear very often, like the sample bra I made in class, you know, it's like a white bra that looks like an old lady bra. And I'd love to finish it, to say I finished it, but, you know, whatever. And I have things like, I started a braided rug. That would be great, but I don't need it. Number 2 is, following right along with that, is I need to stash bust. Really bad. I have so much fabric right now, and it's all crammed in this closet, and there's no reason not to use it. I obviously bought it because I liked it, so I need to get on using it, and I need to properly match them up to patterns and have a pile that I can just pull stuff out and be like, great, I'm gonna make this right now because I have all the stuff I need. I'd also like to stash bus more with my knitting. My knitting, I do not allow myself to have more than 2 of these little bins of yarn at a time because I just don't knit fast enough to justify having a yarn stash, and yarn is so expensive. So I'd like to take some things that I know I have, like I have this yarn to make the owl sweater. I like to actually do that when I do knitting. I don't want to start new knitting projects that require me buying things. Number 3 is go back to school at some point. I'm not working, so I may as well do something else. And this has been in the works for a long time. I've actually been accepted into a program. I just need to build my credit so I can get a loan from the bank and actually start taking classes. And that unfortunately would mean a lot less sewing because I'd need to really crack down. It would be for it's in sustainable science. So a lot of math, a lot of hard science classes, not like theater when I could kind of get away with sewing something and be like, this was my homework because I was studying sewing. But it's really important to me to work on a new career because at this point, short of joining a union, I have reached or becoming a manager of some kind. I've pretty much reached the highest pay level that I can at my job. And my job is very physical, and I know it's not something I can do forever. So the reality is that I need to find something else to support myself. And that is what I have hopefully chosen. So we'll see if that happens. Number 4 is to be more eco-conscious in my sewing and my life, which means things like stash busting because it's already there. So instead of buying new, use what you have. We try and eat organic when we can, even though it's very expensive. We try and, not use a lot of water, not have all the lights on all the time. But I'm also really trying to push myself to bicycle more instead of driving because there are a lot of things, like even just the bank is close enough where I could, if I had to bike, I could do it. I just usually don't. Plus, everywhere around here has parking meters. So if I biked, it would be free, as opposed to me getting there in the car and struggling to look for a quarter to pay the meter. Etc., 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 I could go on about that all day, but there are a lot of things. Like last year, my goal was I tried not to use any reusable drink or beverage containers, like going to Starbucks and getting a paper cup, these are away. And I actually succeeded a lot better than I thought I would. So I'm just trying to continue on with that. And my last goal of the year is to get in shape. I almost always have this on my resolution list, and I've never really followed through on it. So this year I finally joined a gym. I'm doing classes. I keep a log because we have a fitness competition in my knitting group. So that gives me a lot of motivation to go do it. And it's not that I don't exercise plenty when it's warm out, but in the winter I have no motivation to go outside. So this has actually been a lot more fun because I'm taking like Pilates classes and yoga classes, but I don't feel like a slug all the time, just sitting indoors. So it's good, and I can cancel my membership when summer comes and then resume it when it gets cold again. So that's good for that purpose. But also, well, 2 things. I think I want to try the Appalachian Trail someday, so may as well start getting in shape now. Number 2, we're taking a trip to California at some point. That was my Christmas present from James, which is awesome because I always wanted to go to California. I have this fantastic dream in my head of what it's like, which I'm sure is not correct. You know, it's totally from TV shows and, you know, like Psych, which takes place in Santa Barbara, but isn't even filmed in Santa Barbara. So it could be totally inaccurate idea of what California is like. But we're going, and since it's going to be warm there when we go, I really would like to look good in a bathing suit because I love going to the beach. And looking back at our photos from last summer when we went to Maine, I did not look so good in a bikini. There was like serious muffin top going on. But it's not just, you know, it's not just, oh, I want to look better in a bathing suit. I also would like to feel stronger. I know I really need to work on my core because I use, like, my job is physical. When I'm doing wardrobe, I'm running up and down stairs, I'm carrying big heavy laundry baskets, and that's important for me not hurting myself. So there are a lot of reasons for me to do that, but also, you know, obviously it would be nice to feel like I look good. So that's my top 5 list for the year. This probably ran on a heck of a lot longer than I intended it to, but oh well. I hope it was at least kind of interesting and you get to hear me talk. I don't know. But anyways, so I'm going to do another video blog, log, whatever you call it, vlog, for my 2015 sewing plans, which should be a little more interesting because I'll have lovely visuals of pictures and fabric to show you. So until next time, have a good day and find a cute dog to snuggle with. Bye!